Attention all teachers of South Street, we are about to start our mandatory teacher meeting in the library. Please make your way out of your classes and down the hall, Liz announced. As Dawn, Melissa, Liz, and Margaret all waited for the teachers to start showing up one by one, Don opened the presentation on his computer and waited patiently for everyone to show up. "All right, are we ready to start?" Liz asked. Don nodded his head slowly. "Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry in advance for the improv meeting, but we have a few things to discuss before the first day tomorrow. As some of you may know, it has been a very eventful morning with a few mishaps, but we've managed to pull it together and get everything done. As a reminder, please make sure you've printed out seating charts, class rules, and expectations. Are there any questions?" Don asked the other teachers, finishing up his notes on the whiteboard in the room. "All right, moving on to our next topic. Liz, if you could change the slide for me, please," he says, pointing to the computer. Yes. This is just a quick reminder for everyone to consider. The PTA committee is always looking for new members. As you all know, Carla is in charge of this, so feel free to reach out to her if you're interested. There is nothing changing about this, I just wanted to get the word out. If I could add on to that, Carla raised her hand. We're looking for specific types of members to help with the different events that the PTA is in charge of. We need people who are good with planning, organizing, and working as a team. It's a lot of work to put together these events and get everything ready, she explained. Melissa nodded. So it sounds like you want people who like to take on leadership roles and are good at organizing things, she said, her eyes glancing at Carla. Carla nodded. Yes, exactly. We need people who are comfortable with taking charge and getting things done. It's not just about coming up with ideas, but it's also about executing them. We need people who are willing to put in the time and effort to make these events successful, she elaborated. Melissa nodded, folding her hands on the table in front of her. Glad you could clear that up for me, thank you. Don, you may move on, she says. All right, next topic. Let's see, he says, scrolling to the next slide. Let's talk about lesson planning. I'm not here to micromanage your creativity, but I do want us aligned. Every lesson should have a clear objective, a way to check for understanding, and space for student voice. If your plan doesn't leave room for kids to surprise you, it's probably too tight. The group nodded in agreement, paying close attention to Don's statement as he continued speaking. Delimitation. Our classrooms are not one size fits all. If you've got a student who's reading 2 grade levels below or one who's already mastered the content, I want to see that reflected in your planning. That doesn't mean creating 5 separate lessons. It means using strategies that flex. Think choice boards, tiered assignments, and small group instruction, Don says firmly. The next slide, technology integration. Don clicks the next slide, continuing. Now tech. I'm not asking you to turn your classroom into an IBM workshop, but I do expect thoughtful use. If we're not using devices, it should enhance, not distract. Use Google Classroom to streamline communication. Use formative tools to check understanding in real time. And please, model digital citizenship. If we want students to use tech responsibly, they need to see us doing it first. Are there any questions about instructional and tech expectations? He asked the group finally. Well, we've been using tech in the classrooms and libraries for a few years now, Margaret chimed in. I have been very diligent with monitoring the sites that the students are visiting and making sure they're using the electronics responsibly. Every year, I go through the same set of rules with them about taking care of their devices. I tell them to treat it like a new book, most importantly. I would hope that all of you teachers are doing the same. It takes a village to inform, Margaret nodded, finishing her statement. Michelle rolled her eyes inwardly, a small smirk on her face. Yes, we all know how to handle technology in the classroom. Can we move on now? She asked, eager for Don's lecture to be over. No need to rush me, Michelle. We have a lot of ground to cover here, Don murmured. On to the next slide, Liz. He pointed to the computer again. Let's shift gears and talk about 2 things that keep our school running smoothly and safely. Attendance and emergencies. Not glamorous, but absolutely vital. He gestures to the slide. First, attendance. We all know that consistent attendance is key to student success, especially at this age. If a student is absent, please mark it in the system by 9 a.m. If you notice a pattern, frequent tardies, unexplained absences, flag it early. We need your eyes and instincts. Liz spoke up, her tone serious. Excuse me for the interruption, Don. I just want to emphasize the importance of taking attendance seriously. We can't track progress or provide support if we don't know who's missing from school, she stated firmly. Melissa nodded in agreement. I couldn't agree more, Liz. Attendance is crucial to track student performance, she said, chiming in to support her coworker's statement. And it's not just about keeping tabs on who's here and who's not. It's about identifying patterns and intervening early if there's an issue, she added passionately. He scanned the room again before continuing. If you're going to be out, whether it's a sick day or a personal day, please let me in the front office know as soon as possible. The earlier we know, the smoother the coverage. And if you're running late, just shoot a quick text or email. We get it, life happens. But communication is key. He moved on to the next section, emergency protocols. Now, on to emergencies. We'll run our first fire drill during the second week of school. Please review your evacuation routes and make sure they're posted clearly in your room. When the alarm sounds, grab your attendance sheet, line up your students, and head out calmly. For lockdowns, whether it's a drill or reel, we'll follow the lights out, doors locked, out of sight protocol. We'll practice it gently with the kids using age-appropriate language. Our goal is to prepare without scaring. He clicks to the final slide of the topic, medical emergencies. If a student has a medical issue, seizure, allergic reaction, anything urgent, call the office immediately. Don't try to handle it alone. We have trained staff and protocols in place. And if you have students with medical plans, please review them before the first day. Know your EpiPens, inhalers, and who needs what. Be alert, be prepared, and don't hesitate to ask for help. We're a team and our kids count on us to keep them safe and supported. Let's make sure we're ready. He clicks off to the slide. Any questions about the protocols? The teachers nodded in agreement and understanding, grateful for the refresher on the important topics that Don had covered. All right, let's keep it moving, Don says, scrolling to the next slide. Mission, value, priorities. I know these are a bit out of order, but please bear with me. This was a little last minute. You all know I've been in training all summer. I've listened, I've learned, and I've had some humbling moments. I'm turning over a new leaf, and I want this year to feel different. Not just for me, but for all of us. He pauses for a moment, then continues. Our mission is simple. Every child, every day. That means academic growth, emotional safety, and a sense of belonging. Our values, respect, curiosity, and kindness, aren't just for the posters. They're the foundation of every hallway interaction, every lesson, every phone call home. He gestures to the next slide, strategic priorities. This year we're focusing on 3 things. Literacy across content areas, staff wellness, and collaboration. He clicks to the slide once again. Academic and behavioral goals. Academically, we're aiming for growth, not perfection. We'll use classroom assessments and student work to guide instruction. But I want us to remember, behind every data point is a kid with a story. He softens his tone. Any questions about this topic? He scanned the room. The teachers nodded in agreement, taking in Don's words with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Michelle raised an eyebrow, folding her arms across her chest. This all sounds well and good, she said with a hint of sarcasm. But I hope you're not planning to micromanage us every step of the way. We are professionals, after all. Cara nodded in agreement, voicing her own concern. Yeah, I just hope this newfound focus on relationships doesn't come at the expense of clear expectations and consequences. We're here to prepare these kids for life, not coddle them. Don listened to the concerns of his colleagues, his expression serious. I hear you loud and clear, he responded. This isn't about micromanaging you or neglecting boundaries. It's about creating a space where learning and growth go hand in hand. Yes, we're here to prepare these kids for life, but that doesn't mean we can't do it with empathy and compassion. He paused for a moment before continuing. Expectations and consequences are important, but they must be grounded in trust and respect. That's the approach we're taking this year. Speaking of consequences, Liz said under her breath, moving to the next slide. Yes, I almost forgot. We're going to touch over the topic of discipline real quick. I've heard some stories, some from last year, some from other buildings, about students being told to stand against the wall at recess for 5 minutes because they didn't finish their homework. Let me be clear, that's not the direction we're going. He paces for a moment around the room. If a student forgets their homework, that's a conversation, not a punishment. We ask why. We look for patterns. We support. If a student disrupts class, we redirect, reflect, and, if needed, we involve our support team. But we don't shame. We don't isolate. We don't use recess as a bargaining chip. He clicks the next slide. Recess protocols. Which brings me to my next point, he continues, standing tall. Recess is not optional. It's not a reward, it's a right. Every student gets fresh air, movement, and a break. If there's a behavioral issue, we handle it before or after. If a student needs a reset, we offer a walk with a staff member, quiet corner with a book, or a restorative chat. But we don't take away recess unless it's a safety issue. And even then, we find alternatives, he smiled. And yes, that means we'll need to be creative. But I'd rather have a student run last with a para than stand against a wall feeling punished and confused. Melissa and Liz nodded in agreement, glancing at Don as he finished speaking. Don gestures to the next slide. Student support and services. Alright, this next part is where our hearts meet our systems. Let's talk about how we support our students, academically, behaviorally, and emotionally, and how we build a school culture they want to be a part of, he continued. We've got a strong support team this year. If you've got a student who's struggling, academically, behaviorally, socially, don't wait. The earlier we intervene, the better the outcome. The next section was building positive classroom culture. Now, let's talk about the vibe in your room. Kids thrive when they feel safe, seen, and valued. That starts with relationships. Greet them at the door. Learn their interests. Celebrate their wins, big and small, he smiled. Use morning meetings to build community. Use class jobs to give ownership. And when things go sideways, and they will, lean into restorative conversations. What happened? Who was affected? What can we do to make it right? That's how we teach accountability with empathy. He clicks to the final slide of the section. Assemblies, Spirit Days, Community Engagement. This year we're bringing the joy. Monthly assemblies with student shoutouts, performances, and maybe a surprise guest or two. Spirit Days, yes, we're doing Pajama Day again, and yes, I will wear the dinosaur onesie. Community events, family literacy night, multicultural potluck, and a spring carnival that'll knock their socks off. I want to keep the ball moving. We're almost done, so let's move on with our next topic. Save your questions for the end. Don nodded, clicking to the next topic. He gestures to the next slide, parent communication. Parents want to know what's going on, and they want to hear it from you. I'm asking every teacher to send a monthly newsletter. It doesn't have to be fancy. A quick update on what you're teaching, a few reminders, and maybe a student spotlight. Keep it warm, keep it clear, he continues. 4 emails. Respond within 24 hours if possible. Even if it's just, thanks for reaching out, I'll get back to you soon. That little acknowledgement goes a long way. And if a parent feels off, angry, confusing, or just heavy, loop me in. You don't have to handle it alone. He moved on to the next slide of the section, sensitive issues and escalation. If a student shares something concerning a safety issue or a family situation, report it. Trust your instincts. Communication is how we build trust. With families, with each other, and with our kids. Let's be clear, kind, and consistent. And when in doubt, ask. I'd rather hear too much than not enough. And moving on, he says, going at a faster pace now. In an effort to wrap up the meeting, Don saved some last-minute housekeeping topics for the end. Teachers shifted in their seats, the last slide glowing on the projector. Tech setup and final notes. Every classroom should have new tech ready by Monday. If you're missing Chromebooks, iPads, or chargers, let Margaret know ASAP. Logins for students will be distributed in your mailboxes. Please keep those secure. And yes, smart boards are still temperamental. If yours is acting up, don't wrestle it alone, he smiled. Margaret, our brilliant librarian and unofficial tech whisperer, is your go-to for anything IT related. She's got the patience of a saint and the troubleshooting skills of a NASA engineer. If you're stuck, she's your lifeline. Margaret blushed at Don's compliment, giving him a friendly smile. Now, looking ahead. Back to school night is in a couple weeks. We'll send out flyers and reminders, but start thinking about how you want your room to feel. Not just look, feel. Parents aren't coming to see perfect bulletin boards. They're coming to see the heart of your classroom. Let's show them what we're building. He paused, scanning the room. I know this summer was a reset for me. I've learned a lot, and I'm walking into this year with humility and hope. You are all the soul of this school. The way you greet a child, the way you handle a meltdown, the way you make a kid feel like they matter, that's the magic, he smiles, his voice steady. So let's kick off this year with courage, with kindness, and with the belief that what we do here matters. Every hallway hello, every lesson plan tweak, every moment of grace, it adds up. And it changes lives. He claps his hands, once gently. Are there any other questions before we conclude this meeting? The teachers sat, pondering Don's presentation for a few moments. Michelle was the first to speak up. Don, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I have to ask, are you sure we can manage all these changes and initiatives while still keeping up with our regular teaching duties? She questioned, her expression skeptical. Cara nodded in agreement. It sounds like a lot of extra work. We already have a lot on our plates in the classroom, and adding all these new responsibilities to the load feels overwhelming. Don furrowed his eyebrows at Michelle's honest response. I'm really not sure what you're finding difficult here, Michelle. These are the same rules we've had for the past 2 years, and even when Marnie was still in charge. My job during this meeting has been lecturing and reiterating these expectations and goals to all of you to make sure everything's clear. I mean, if you have an actual issue, that's different. But it sounds like you're just finding things to complain about, and I'm not going to support it, he sighed heavily, wiping sweat off his forehead. Michelle raised a brow at Don's response. I'm not just complaining for the sake of complaining, she retorted, folding her arms across her chest. I have concerns about the workload and the potential for burnout if we're constantly adding new responsibilities without proper consideration for our already hectic schedules. Cara nodded, offering her support. I agree. It's not about finding fault. It's about finding solutions. We all want what's best for the students, but we don't want to sacrifice our well-being and the quality of our classes in the process. Don sighed in frustration. I'm not trying to micromanage anyone. I'm just trying to make sure things run smoothly. Is that such a crime? He retorted, trying to keep his cool. Well, it sure feels like it, Michelle replied curtly. We've been managing just fine without these changes for years now. Why the sudden need for more structure and protocols? Cara chimed in again, adding, Yeah, it's like Don has lost trust in us professionals. We know how to do our jobs. We don't need someone looking over our shoulders all the time. Michelle nodded in agreement. Exactly. It's not about micromanagement. It's about respect and trust. We need to be treated like the adults we are. Don sighed heavily, realizing that he needed to address the disagreement that was developing among the teachers. Okay, ladies, let's dial back the negativity, he said firmly, cutting through the tension. I'm not here to micromanage or question your professionalism. I trust that you all know how to do your jobs well. I'm simply trying to ensure that everything is running smoothly and efficiently. The disagreement amongst the teachers seemed to diffuse slightly, and Don took a moment to wrap up the meeting. All right, let's move on. I think we've covered everything for now. And let's remember, these changes aren't about micromanaging. It's about improving communication, holding each other accountable, and supporting each other. Remember, we're all in this together, and we have a shared responsibility to make sure our school runs efficiently, he said, trying to maintain a positive tone. As the meeting came to a close, the teachers gathered their belongings and began to make their way out of the room, discussing the meeting amongst themselves. There was a mix of opinions about Don's new approach to leadership and the changes he had outlined. Some teachers seemed to be open to the changes, while others remained skeptical. Don remained seated, watching the teachers exit the room. He knew that change could be difficult, but he was determined to make a difference this year. Michelle and Cara were really testing your patience, Don, Liz says, stating the obvious. I know, he sighed loudly, gathering his things. I don't know what has gone into them. I'm just trying to be a better leader this year, and they keep hitting me with constant negativity. They better get a good night's rest and prepare for tomorrow. It's not going to be an easy day, he said. Liz nodded, understanding Don's frustration. Give them time, she said gently. They'll come around, or at least learn to work with you. She adjusted her bag on her shoulder before adding, And hey, if it gets too bad tomorrow, just remember, they're not the only teachers here who actually respect what you're trying to do. Don managed a small smile as he shut off the projector and locked up his files. Thanks, Liz, he murmured sincerely.